Welcome to Strictly Education, incorporating Matrix ICT.
Assessment's something that's changed hugely over the years. The demands upon us for what we needed to collect, collate and analyse have grown. And whereas maybe 5 or 6 years ago, when we were using non-ICT based approaches to it, I could manage that. The demands and expectations upon me in that role now are such that I couldn't manage that effectively. So we now use Assessment Manager, and have sort of a combination of other ICT based things to help us analyse the results, which makes it more efficient and effective for me, but most importantly means that other people can have access to the data more easily, have ownership of that data.
Previously, assessment was done, after marking the sheets and you have the assessment data, you would have to go through each individual child for numeracy, literacy and science, and put in each individual grade that they got within the sub-level. Then you would have to work out where they were at in autumn and then compare that to spring, calculate it for that particular child. So if that was for numeracy, you'd have to calculate how many sub-levels they had moved since autumn. You'd have to do that again in summer, compare that to spring, compare that to autumn, how many sub-levels have they moved for the year. And that's for every child, for numeracy, for literacy and for science. So you can imagine that, like, you do that over like 180 times. So yeah, it was quite time consuming and laborious.
It's much easier because we used to have to do the shaded sheets, but it's much easier just to input your data on there and then it will calculate how many sub-levels they've gone up at certain points of the year. So it's a lot quicker and a lot easier for us, and it's easier to look at a glance than the previous way we used to do things.
The new assessment procedure is definitely saving me about a good 3 days because I can do assessment within about a couple of hours really, whereas it took a few days before. So overall for a year, considering that we do assessment every half term, if not even more frequently, to monitor our children that are close to national expectation, it's probably saving me, maybe I'd say a good month wouldn't be an exaggeration.
In terms of sort of weaning me off a kind of approach that I'd become quite comfortable with, in terms of sort of paper analysis and assessment procedures, obviously things had to take place within the school. Everybody had to have access to the same data, be able to find the same, input and have access to analysing the data as well.
I think it just makes life a lot easier for teachers in general, because if we need to find the date of birth for a child, we can just go straight on there. Or if people need to find their surname, we can go straight on without having to go down to the office and pester them down there. Also with the assessment side of it, we can input the assessment data into Sims, rather than having to do it on shaded sheets, which was very time consuming, without having to count how many sub-levels progress children have made. It's all done for us. So I think that's been the major thing where Sims is concerned, for me anyway, just especially because I run clubs. I think that's the easiest thing. I can just type in and find out all the information about the children and it's there.
I mean, the future is that we will have to keep evolving. Assessment demands upon us, external demands are changing again. We are moving towards much more of a kind of APP, people tracking approach, which we're only just beginning to understand, to be honest, as a school. But it will inevitably have changes, but obviously it's far easier to change something that's ICT based and can just kind of tweak the system a little bit than it is to go back and start a whole new system from scratch.
We use it for behaviour notes. So, for example, in my class at the moment, I have a child who is very confrontational. So if there's another teacher sees her throughout the school and tells her off straight away, she's likely to run down the corridor and run into the playground. With Sims, it's very good because behavioural notes, you can check up on children. So if you see a child that you think, hang on, I think they might have a special need or they might have a behavioural problem, you can go on and check, so that if you do come across that child in future, and especially with the clubs as well, because you don't really know, you don't have time to go and see the teachers, you can check up everything. So if somebody's got an allergy or something like that, you can check it up on Sims.
We never want to be in a position where assessment is driving our curriculum, so it's got to be a central sort of an important part of our life at school, but it's got to be effective, but we don't want it to kind of take over, so it's kind of the thing, it's finding the balance. It's got to come after the kind of learning and not before.